No Soundbites Allowed is a podcast hosted by Michael Vass. The podcast focuses on providing in-depth discussions on various political and social issues. As the title suggests, the aim is to go beyond quick soundbites and explore topics in greater detail. Michael Vass, the host, engages with guests to analyze and discuss current events, policies, and political ideologies. The live stream and videos cover a wide range of subjects, including politics, economics, social issues, and more. By delving into longer, more comprehensive conversations, No Soundbites Allowed aims to provide listeners with a deeper understanding of the complexities surrounding contemporary issues. AI is listening. Shouldn't you know what AI knows? Aren't you tired of being treated like a child by major media parrots and want to be respected as an adult? There is nothing to lose and a lot to potentially gain, so check out No Soundbites Allowed on all major social media platforms.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is No Soundbites Allowed. I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Political Dragon, here in our offices in the Bronx, New York. It's 5:30 on February 6th. It's a Tuesday, and I wanted to follow up about the news that happened yesterday, February 5th, in central New York, because I think this is an example of what we're seeing across New York, in Illinois, Massachusetts, California. We're seeing this in many of the strongholds of the progressive Democrats, and it's affecting everyone. And I think what happened yesterday was an example of absolute brilliance. I mean, I think this was incredible. Now, some people will say this was completely insane, that this was just a madman running off the top of his mouth. A lot of people have different opinions, but I think we should go through this together to really get a good understanding of this. And I have to say, I think that every city in New York State should have the Police Choice Act on the ballot in November. That's right. I will tell you right now, I believe, having seen what happened in central New York yesterday, that we should put on a referendum in each and every city across New York State defunding the police. Let's put it to the test. Let's put it on the ballot. Let's let the public vote on this. I think it is a brilliant idea, not necessarily for the reason that some progressives may think, not necessarily for what we saw happen in Binghamton, New York, but let's talk about that. And I know I'm a conservative Republican, and many people will look at this and go, Mike, you just said put defunding the police on the ballot. Are you crazy? No, I have a reason, and I'll explain that in just a moment. Now, before we get started, I do want to mention, if this is the first time that you're seeing our channel, we do long-form political commentary. And every Sunday, we do a live stream, very much like this one, where we go over all the issues that affect all of us all the time. And that's internationally. So we talk about everything that's going on in the Middle East, the response to Iran and the Iran-backed terror, the attacks against U.S. troops in Syria, Iraq, what's going on with Ukraine and Russia, the American hostages, U.S. economics, China, the pending war in Southeast Asia, as well as domestic issues. So we cover all of that. And if you haven't seen the channel before, I do invite you to either check Spotify or Rumble, here on YouTube or even on Facebook. Look back at our Sunday shows, and I think you may find something of interest. Moving forward, what about what we're seeing right now? So yesterday, I was talking about this a little bit. I think I have this ready for you. I should. Sometimes I don't. Let me go backwards in time a little bit. Let's start this from the actual beginning. You see, the idea of defunding the police has been around for quite some time now. In fact, I didn't put my face up there. Hang on one second. Bear with me 1 second as... Hey, I don't get the funding that you see out of NBC or CBS. It's a one-man show. What we have been seeing for many years now, and as you can see if you did a Google search on this, going back in the central New York, with the emergence of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, a radical, progressive, far-left organization, about half a step down from Antifa, and it is rumored that many of the members of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow are also members of a cell of Antifa in New York State. We do see that going back to about 2016, right about the same time that Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, otherwise known as PLOT, showed up, the call to defund the police started to happen with significance. And we've seen a lot of people who have been promoting that idea of defunding the police. We've seen that from Mayor Matt Ryan. He'd already been doing that back in 2009 when he was just reducing the police budget, not hiring as many police officers. It was before it was popular, he was trying to whittle away the police and introduce social reform or social justice, as they like to call it. But a lot of what we have seen is that after 2020 and 2021, looking at the riots, the attacks against private citizens like in Rochester, in Brooklyn, we saw this throughout the entire country. The public said, no, we're not interested in social justice. We're not interested in social justice warriors. In fact, that became somewhat of a joke. Mentioning the words defunding the police was instantly a way to get the public to be against you, because we've seen that it failed in every single city, everywhere it was tried across the nation. Every time they did it, we saw that crime increased because it did not protect the public. But Democrats and progressives were very much sold on this idea. They still wanted to implement it no matter what. So they changed the wording. Instead of saying they were social justice warriors, well, they started saying that instead they're progressives, they're leftists, and they just left out the social justice terminology. They said there would be BLM or Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, Indivisible New York, Working Families Party, everything except the truth. And what we also saw is they changed the terms. So instead of looking for social justice, they wanted for reform, bail reform, prison reform, social reform, reimagining the police, reallocating the funding of police. All this is just a play on words. The element, the core of everything they wanted was still exactly the same. Get rid of the police force, defund the police, because they didn't like police. And they want to change our country fundamentally. They want to replace the Constitution and the amendments with UN-backed human rights, rights given by government to the individuals that could also be taken by government. They wanted a more socialist government in place. That has not changed. The organizations' names change, not the people who are in those organizations. The name of the issues, yeah, they reword that, but it's still the same core issues that are in front of us. But to say that if you say, you want to defund the police, well, that's just a hot button and everyone goes crazy when you say those words. They just like to say it in a different way. And as I said, in central New York, that's been something that's been happening since 2016. This isn't new. In fact, going back to former Mayor Matt Ryan in 2009. So that makes it very interesting because yesterday, a private citizen, John Solak, decided that he wanted to put this issue onto the ballot. He wanted to put defunding the Binghamton local police on the ballot. Matter of fact, not just defunding them, completely disbanding the police force, eliminating them completely. And I did a video on it then, and I want to talk about it now. Some people will see this live, some people will see it later. That's fine. But I will also mention that many of the people I'm going to be talking about are people that I know. See, for those who are not aware, I used to live for about 20 years, 2 decades. I lived in Binghamton, New York. I lived in Broome County, and I got to know every politician there. I know all the politicians at the local, state, and federal level, including members of Congress. I know individuals there in every single party and many of the political factions out there. So people we'll be talking about today are people that I know. I know John Solak personally. I know Fred Akshar. I know Benji Fetterman. I know Donald Lepardo and Jason Garnar. I know all of these individuals in elected office, candidates, all of them. So let's talk about this. John Solak yesterday came up and he said, hey, I want to put a bill in front of the Binghamton City Council. So let's take a look at what he said and more importantly, how the media covered that. And I'll be brief because I did an entire video on this yesterday highlighting it. And I think it was a decent video, about 20 minutes long. But essentially, John Solak said, hey, let's get rid of the police force. Period. We have a county sheriff. We have the New York State Police. Let them do the job instead of the Binghamton Police Force. Now, it was very badly described in this article, but I think the better article that covered it a little bit more in detail is the article, give me a second. There it is. I think, come on. There it is. Bear with me a second, folks. Hey, user has been banned. I see you there. Thank you for joining us. So I think this was the better article, and I cited it yesterday in the video I did at that time. And so essentially, what John Solak, a private citizen not affiliated with any party, said was, let's reduce the cost to the city of Binghamton, Broome County. Let's use the resources that are already here, the county sheriff, the state police, and let them take over for the Binghamton police force. And he did allude to some corruption, some lack of adequacy of the police force, and said, you know what, why are we funding this? It's a waste of time. Now, I want to be very clear, because I know John Solak. I've known him for well over a decade. I know Fred Akshar, who is currently the sheriff of Broome County and formerly a state senator of New York, and I know him personally as well. I know Police Chief Zukoski as well, many of the other individuals involved in this. John Solak is not a Republican. He's not a Democrat. John is an independent individual who has no problem taking on any individual in politics, and he has. He's attacked the Republicans, the Democrats, progressives, conservatives equally. He looks out. John has been adamant in trying to reduce the size of government, remove government corruption, and improve the efficiency and effectiveness of government. Now, is John an emotional person? Yes, he is. Is he the most communicative person? Not necessarily. But John is someone who is very often correct in his analysis. He does his homework extraordinarily well. And when he calls people out, he usually is correct in what he is stating. So when he says that Binghamton, the city of Binghamton, can save money by making a move towards county police and state police instead of a local police force, I don't think he's wrong. He does his homework. I'm sure he's looked at the numbers. But I don't think that was the reason why John did this, why he presented this to have it on the ballot. I think it's a totally separate issue. I think he's playing 4D chess. And I think the Democrats and the Republicans completely missed what was going on. I think they all fell into a trap showing how ineffective they are and how they are not thinking through the issues that face them. And I think John was trying to highlight that, to show the public how duplicitous many of these elected officials are, both in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. That they don't really care about the issue or the consequences or even resolving any issues. They only worry about having power and continuing to maintain that power. And I think this highlights it very, very well. By the way, folks, I did see user has been banned has joined us. Thank you for that. Now, you may say, well, Mike, maybe you're looking at this with rose-colored glasses. Maybe you're, oh, wait a minute. Do I have background noise going on here? Let me check this for a second, folks. No, it's muted. Okay. Sorry. I'm also checking on the vote for the impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security. So please bear with me on that. But a lot of people had some words about this. I think this was also a very good article about it. Let me show you that. And links to everything I'm talking about will be in the description. So if you don't see this live, don't worry about it. You can see it afterwards. You can go and read the articles for yourself and get some of the information here. So again, why was John doing this? Because it's been done before. It's been done in Camden, New Jersey. It's been done in Tompkins County. It's been done in Owego, New York, where we've seen this same idea. Save money, improve the police. Now, in Camden in particular, it's been 10 years since they've done that. And they've had some successes and they've had some failures because it wasn't a perfect plan. It did save some money. There were a lot of people who were arrested initially. It balanced itself out. People are generally okay with this. Again, I don't think that's really the goal, though. I really don't think that's what they wanted. Defunding police, again, not a new idea. 10 years ago, Camden did this, 2013. They have been moving towards this. Progressives have been trying to get more and more cities to do this, even when it fails. We've seen it in Minneapolis and so forth. So John isn't wrong in saying, hey, this is an option for Central New York, for people in Binghamton, New York. It's worked in one city. It's an idea that's been tried in a couple of other cities with some mixed success. It may be worthwhile here. Let the public make the choice. That's fine. But here's the thing I found about that is when John presented this, the answer from all of the Democrats who are in the Binghamton City Council. Binghamton City Council is now completely Democrat-controlled. And they all ran on a progressive platform. They're not just Democrats, they're progressives. And they're looking to be more social justice aware in their policies. Fine. That's a failure of the Republican Party in not presenting good enough candidates or allowing those candidates to express themselves enough to get to win. And Binghamton, New York is a college town, Binghamton University being right there, and that has a major influence on the entire community as Binghamton University is dedicated to progressive politics. Harvey Stenger, the president, has been out really overworking to make sure that progressive politics are infused within Binghamton University and through the influence and money attributed to that state college, that it also affects the surrounding community, Vestal, Binghamton, Endicott, New York. I'm trying to sum up a lot of things here so you get the full understanding here. So the progressives who have been asking to defund the police since 2016 at least, and have actually partially defunded the police going back as far as 2009, well, now they were given a gift. John Solak, private citizen, said, I want to put this onto the ballot. I'm presenting it to Binghamton City Council. Let's get this, let the public vote on this. Let's vote on defunding the police. And you might say, well, why would you do that? And many of the Republicans freaked out. They lost their minds. And they were absolutely against this idea. They absolutely did not want that to happen. In fact, here's some of the comments they were making at the time. Let me show you. So the commentary they were making is, oh my God, we cannot do this. You can see this. This is from the Broome Republicans in particular, speaking for many of the organizations. But we have comments here from Broome County Sheriff Fred Akshar, who stood to gain from this. He would have more control over Binghamton, the city of Binghamton, as well as the county of Broome. We had candidates for elected office, state senator, who were speaking on this. We had the GOP, Broome County Republicans chairman, Benji Fetterman, also speaking on this, saying, oh no, this is insane. We cannot possibly do this. That this was an insane idea. How dare you try to defund the police? That's kind of expected, but I think they missed the point. See, the local community is conservative. The college isn't. The college students who live in the town all year round, they're progressive. And there is a small segment of the population of the city of Binghamton that are progressive, most of them aligned with groups like Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, otherwise known as PLOT, Working Families Party, and Indivisible New York. These fringe organizations, but there are a very small number of people who are very insular. No one really agrees with them, nor does anyone really follow them. So it wasn't a bad idea. But the thing I found interesting is, and going back to some of the comments earlier, is, where is it? No, I believe it's this one. As we go through this, what you'll see is it was people like Councilman Nate Hotchkiss and the other Democrats that were like, no, this is a crazy idea. We can't do this. Now, again, the progressives and Democrats who have been supporting defunding the police, either through Matt Ryan, who has run on the platform of social justice to run for DA. He ran for the county sheriff on the platform of social justice. He's a prominent Democrat in central New York. And they've been pushing this issue consistently for a decade. And yet now we hear them saying, no, we can't do that. That's just crazy talk. This is not going to move forward. Wait a minute, but didn't you run on that? Wasn't that your whole purpose? To try and get social reform, social justice, to have prison reform. Isn't this part of that process? Isn't this what you promised your constituents to get elected? And now they're reversing their position, saying, no, we wouldn't defund the police. And I think that's really interesting to note. Oh, you won't defund the police. Okay, so we should note this, and I think people should keep this in mind. So at no point through the rest of their tenure for the city council should they come up and say, let's lessen the number of police in Binghamton, New York. And again, if we do this across New York State, you'll get the same response. So you won't do that. You're not going to reduce the number of police officers like we see happening in New York City, where Mayor Eric Adams is cutting the police force by about 3,000 police officers so he can fund the other progressive agenda, illegal immigration and open borders. And so that he can afford to have those illegal aliens that he's sending to Binghamton, New York, by the way, against the will of even the Democrats in Binghamton. County Executive Jason Garnar has sued New York City to prevent the illegal aliens to come into that progressive, into Binghamton, because he doesn't agree with them. So, it gets convoluted when you try and follow this. So the progressives are for these things, and they do want to defund the police, and they do want to open the borders, and they do want illegal aliens, except in their cities or in their homes, paid for by someone else, not their people, and they don't want to take the political backlash for having done what they promised that they wanted to do. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So when you're listening to this, and by the way, I do want to say hello to Dal is with us, and I see that Users Band is with us. I think someone else was with us as well. It's really interesting to me that everyone is freaking out on this because one man, a private citizen, wrote a bill that, by the way, we now know, City Council, private citizens don't write these bills. Committees write the bill. Organizations, political organizations, and businesses, they write the bills, not the representatives that are elected by the public. No one you can personally account for. Someone else goes, hey, we need this bill, and they write it and bring it in. Not private citizens who are actually involved in that city that have a vested interest. Someone else does it for them. And basically, you just have your city council member as a parrot to read off what they have been presented and say, hey, this is what the party wants you to say to introduce this bill because they have a political agenda. That should trouble people because that's what has been exposed as of yesterday. And that was admitted to by the Democrats in Binghamton City Council during their city council meeting, which I am going to show you, and we can go through it together. Let me get to the comments, though. Dow says, I say fine, defund the police. The only stipulation that Dow has is a full repeal of all gun control and body armor legislation for civilian ownership. So Dow says we should be able to have body armor and protect ourselves passively, which is illegal in New York State. And we should be able to exercise our Second Amendment rights, which New York State has no power over. It already exists. I can understand that argument, Dow. And Dow goes on to say, repeal the duty to retreat. The castle doctrine. That we should be able to defend ourselves, our homes, and our property and our family without having to run away. That's not necessary. You've invaded my property. You've endangered me and my family. That's on you. I get to defend myself. I agree with you, Dow. Users in Band says, they just do say things that feel right at the moment. And give me a moment. Wow. Okay, Dow and User have been saying a lot of comments here. Now, and Grace is watching. Hello, Grace. I'm glad that you're watching as well. So I get the sentiment. The public are saying, hey, well, let's do this. Let's do this. If you want to defund the police, then allow me to defend myself at the very least. Mind you, the city council can't by itself remove the police. Really, they can't do that. They don't have the power. Nor can the mayor. By the way, mayor is Jared Cram in Binghamton, New York. I know him as well. And Jared, who's a Republican, doesn't agree with the city council. They're at loggerheads at this moment. And he has also denounced this as insanity. We've heard from Fred Akshar. We've heard from one of the candidate for the New York 52nd Senate District, that's a state election, Mike Singler, who says, no, this is insane. Jared Cram, mayor of Binghamton, says, this is insane. I think they missed the point. Of course it's insane, but put it on the ballot. It should, if you've been doing your jobs correctly as conservatives and Republicans, if the public understands the danger to them, if they've been paying attention to what we have seen in 2020 and 2021 and what we have seen in city after city, they're not going to agree with this. They're going to say, no, we want our police. Just like every single poll that has been done nationwide, even in places like Minneapolis, even in the black neighborhoods of Minneapolis, the answer is consistently by wide margins. We're talking about 3/4 of the individuals that have been polled over and over again every single year, the answer is no, we want the police, and some places even want more police, regardless of the color of skin, regardless of the economic background, and regardless of which part of the country that you point to. So why not have the vote? And I think, see, there's part of the genius. Why not have the vote? This is 4D chess. This is what progressives want. They say they speak for the public. Fantastic. Then they should be more than eager to have this on the ballot. But as an example, Nate Hotchkiss, the city council member, said, no, this is insane. It's never going to make it out of the city council meeting. They're never going to put it on the ballot. Well, wait a minute. Why not? Isn't this your position? This is the party. This is your party's position. This is something that is both local, state, and national level. This is what Democrats and progressives are asking for. Why wouldn't you want it on the ballot? This is your opportunity to stand by what you believe, to stand for what you have said. But they're saying, no, that's not even an option. We won't even discuss it. It won't go anywhere. Literally, that's what he said. It will not go anywhere. This is dead on arrival. Now, you may think that's pretty biased for him to say that. That's a lot of political bias. It's dead on arrival. It's not going anywhere. Really? You haven't even heard the argument. Why would you say that? Unless you don't care what's being said, which is another eye-opening moment that Republicans could have taken advantage of. Conservatives could have pointed out for the public. Even moderate Democrats could have said, hey, why is this city councilman saying that the voice of a public citizen who's concerned and is giving us an option that has worked in other cities, why are we discounting him completely on an issue supposedly Hotchkiss actually supports? That's what he ran on. That's what the party has been running on. Why is he putting in this political bias? What's with the flip-flop here? But you're not supposed to ask that question. You're not supposed to think about that. You're supposed to just go, well, okay. You're supposed to just blindly accept whatever he says. Well, John Solak, he's a Republican, so it must be a horrible idea, even though it's a progressive idea, which is supported by Democrats and progressives. But it's horrible because a Republican said so. Does that make sense to anyone? I mean, really, take the emotion out. Take the names, the titles off, and does it make any sense? This is what you ran on. This is what your party supports at a local, state, and federal level, and you're denouncing it as being insane, but yet that's what you've been trying to do for a decade. And Republicans had the opportunity to point that out to everyone, and instead they said, well, no, it's just insane. Of course we know it's insane. Point it out. Not because you don't like John Solak. And by the way, let's be very clear, because I know this for a fact. The Republican Party has a problem with John Solak because he isn't politically aligned with anyone. He has embarrassed Republicans and conservatives, Democrats, progressives, the mayor, the county executive, members of the assembly, the state senate. He's embarrassed all of them. He's pointed out flaws and errors and their incompetence and ineptitude on a regular basis of every party. It's like a rite of passage to be elected in central New York and not and wait for John Solak to come up and tell you how you screwed up, because he's often right and he does his homework. And I don't know of any politician that has actually risen to the level of, being supported by John Solak blindly. Everyone has had their moment where John has said, you screwed this up. So Republicans don't like John Solak. The Republican Party, I should say. Not individual rank and file members, the party, and in particular, the elites in the party. Democrats hate John Solak. The progressives absolutely hate him. members of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow have allegedly attacked John on camera, on live stream. They have attacked him. By the way, John is in his 70s. John is a threat to no one. And 30-year-old men, mind you, the individual alleged to have done this, a big fat black guy, John Solak was no threat, and this guy just attacked him. And in fact, John Solak then went to Democrat city council members of the 3rd District and said, hey, I've just been attacked. And that Democrat said, gee, John, I feel so bad for you. Did not provide him with medical help. John had to go to a hospital. Didn't check on his safety or his well-being. She just said, too bad for you. Tells you something about their compassion. So I'm giving you all the background here, some of the inside baseball. I'm trying to make sure it's understood why everyone was freaking out. The right was freaking out because John Solak, a private citizen not aligned or under their control, was making the statement, and they didn't like the statement. The left is freaking out because John is not using the wording that they like. He didn't say reimagine the police. He didn't say redefine the police. He didn't say social justice or prison reform. No, he said exactly what they are trying to do, defund the police. And that's a buzzword that they know. All the conservatives, all the Republicans, independents, they're not going to like that because it doesn't work. So the Democrats are upset. Now, with all of that being said, and I'm trying to run this through. Some people love it, some people hate it. But you'll hear many people who say, oh, well, John Solak, he's just crazy. He just doesn't know what he's talking about. By the way, you can go to John's Twitter page and you can see for yourself. You can see all of the members of the left, the right, and the center. You can see politicians year after year after year have been freaking out about John and what John has had to say. And he has gone after, he's asked them for comments, he's recorded them over and over again. This is up, and you can see the responses to John. I mean, I'm just giving you a quick run through here. So to say that John Solak is left or right is inaccurate. Just not real. Now, I say all that, and I bring all this up so you can understand how the political parties view individual citizens. If you speak up, they will judge you. And they judge you by how useful you are. Are you going to help them maintain power or to gain power? Are you going to help them get donations? Or are you going to be a problem? Are you going to ask them to work to live up to the oaths that you have taken to improve and serve the public? See, I think that's one of the things John does very well. This is your oath. You swore an oath to serve the public. John is this public. Serve him. Respect him. You don't have to agree with John Solak for a second. You don't have to agree with any of the things he's suggesting. But you serve him. You should listen to him. You should try to understand why he's saying the things. Is there corruption in Binghamton? Notice, nobody wants to address, well, John, there's no corruption in the Binghamton police force. No one's saying that. Mind you, there really isn't any. Binghamton is one of the best police forces in New York State. But no one wants to talk about how great the police force is. That's the reason why we should keep them. In fact, you're not hearing from anyone, left or right, why there should be a police force. They're really not saying, well, the police force are essential and have been doing a great job. You're really not hearing that. So I found that to be really interesting, I myself. Maybe other people don't. I do. And this is part of the reason why I think we need to have this conversation. We need to look at this. So the city council said, but don't worry. We are transparent. We are going to listen to John. We're going to give him 5 minutes public speaking time that John Solak will be able to speak and to present his bill, point blank. And I want to pick up from that actual speech. I don't think most people saw that, but I want to play that for you. I want to share that with you because I think there's a couple of things that are very important in what is being said. I think there's a couple of things that are critical about what happened at this meeting that the news media has completely glossed past. They want you to forget this. In fact, every political party, left, right, and center, they all want this to go away. They want you to forget. And I don't think you should. I think you should pay attention to what's going on. So I have both audio and I have the, the captions on. So let's go through this a little bit together so we can see what's being said.
An actual form for requesting RLs. And we will, going forward, make sure we announce every RL that is submitted to us by constituents, so that we have that transparency. We have heard that there's either in action or in perception that there has been kind of RLs that have been submitted in the past that were not recognized. So we want to make sure we have that transparency.
So let me stop there for a second. It is being brought up by the Binghamton City Council that in the past, proposals for legislation created by citizens, private individuals, not corporations, not political organizations, not political parties, but just regular citizens, they didn't go anywhere. They were thrown away. And she says, well, that's, there's a perception of that. No, it's a fact. She got it right the first time. That is a fact. I know this for a fact. It's happened to me. It's happened to other individuals who have submitted legislation, both from the right and the left, and said, hey, here's something I want to discuss this. I think it should be on the ballot. It should be voted on. And past city councils, both Democrat and Republican, have said, we're not going to talk about that because they were afraid of an election. Democrats have done this. Republicans have done this. Doesn't matter who's been in charge. They've done it to the public on a regular basis and said, we don't want to talk about that issue because we don't know if we will win the next election if we talk about that issue. I know that for a fact. It's happened to me. It has happened to others, Democrats and Republicans alike. So she's not wrong when she says there's been a lack of transparency and that past city councils of both in control of both parties have done this on a regular basis. She's being honest there. Let's go on.
And inclusion with all city residents. So we'll be announcing those at work sessions. If you submit one and we don't put it on the work session, everyone is encouraged and invited to come and speak at public comment at our business meetings. I do want to say that because of the nature of this topic, I did reach out to Chief Zukuski and he did share.
Let me stop it again. So it's good that they have admitted that the public, private citizens, can and do submit legislation to city councils, to members of the New York Assembly, the New York State Senate, to federal, even to the Congress. They are, and the normal response by political parties, the right and the left, is ignore them, tell them, shut up, we can't do that. It may cost us an election. We'll get to it some other day. That's a fact. So yes, people should submit more legislation. And yes, there will be people who are crackpots with insane ideas that are going to put in legislation now and ask to be heard. That's part of freedom. That's part of the public being involved in their politics. Sometimes you'll get the extremes as well as you'll get the mainstream. That's part of the job. So do that. Now, this portion that I see here, I think is very important. By the way, I do see Carousel Boy, who believes that John Solak is awesome, and this was crazy but important. I want to thank Carousel Boy for joining us. But here's something that I find interesting at the city council meeting. Why did the Democratic Party decide, or the Democrats, the progressives in city council, why did they go to the police chief? What did they need to notify the police chief about? Now, it's one thing to say they asked the police chief if he wanted to come to the public meeting to defend the Binghamton police force and to emphasize the good job they have been doing and why they are necessary for the city of Binghamton. That's one thing. Say, hey, we're going to hear on someone who wants to remove you. Do you want to speak and defend the police department? That would be fine. She didn't do that. That's not what she said. That's not on the public record, as you can see. No, she said she informed him of this and he shared her thoughts. Well, what were your thoughts? What is it that you were talking to him about? What exactly was the conversation? See, they want transparency, but we're not getting transparency. We're getting half of a conversation. Now, I'm not saying that Police Chief Zukuski did anything wrong. I am saying it is very curious from the city council to say, oh yeah, we spoke to the police chief about this. He has nothing to do with it. The police chief has nothing to do with hearing legislation, other than if he wants to defend the police force, fantastic. But he has no political influence. But is the progressive Democratic City Council of Binghamton, are they saying that they bow to the will of the police chief? That he has a political aspect to his position that they are taking into account in terms of their legislation? That doesn't sound correct. That sounds even more so like a problem. Now, it could be the poor communication skills of the city council in explaining what the hell they were doing, but your job is to be able to communicate what's happening in government. If you can't communicate something as simple as, we asked the police chief if he wanted to make comment, he didn't. That's a very simple thing. That's not hard to say, which makes me think you said something else, which means I have doubt in that city council. And now the public, now that I've made you aware of it, because no one in the news media wants to focus on that, now that you know, there's a question you have to ask. What are you not telling the public? What are you glossing over? Is there a problem that we weren't aware of before? It's a question that should be asked and answered if they truly are trying to be transparent. And for the left, if you're a member of the left, if you're a member of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, you're part of the Working Families Party, if you're part of the progressive movement of the Democrats, you should be seriously asking a question, because you believe in social justice, you believe in prison reform, you want to defund the police. You must be asking, or you should be asking right now, why are your elected officials who said to your face that they believe in the same far left ideology you do, why are they talking to the police officers, the police chief, and getting his input on whether or not they should pass legislation you already support and that they told you they supported as well? Why is that happening? See, there's a lot of questions here that we should be really looking at, and I think that's interesting. Again, no one in the news media wants to talk about this. They want to maintain the status quo. And that's really what this entire conversation is about, maintaining the status quo. The Republicans don't want to touch issues. The Democrats and the progressives don't want to touch the issues. They want to maintain a status quo so they all get to keep their power. That's what I see happening here. And I see John bringing this all into daylight because no one wanted to talk about it before. Let's see what else goes on here.
My words explaining our view on transparency and inviting residents' input. with the police force. So there have been discussions going on behind the scenes. And with that, I want to hand things off.
There is a discussion going on behind the scenes about transparency. Why would there be a conversation behind the scenes? Either have that conversation up front publicly or don't have it at all. But let me go on.
To Councilman Hotchkiss, who is chairing our rules and procedures, and invite down.
Now, again, here comes Councilman Hotchkiss. He's the one who's in charge of being able to hear about this proposal. Remember, it was Hotchkiss himself who was identified previously by multiple news media sources as being someone who has already said this is dead on arrival, that this is a bad deal, that he will not support it, that the city council won't support it. He's already made up his mind. He's already told you what the outcome is going to be. He is biased from the start, either because he doesn't like John Solak, or maybe he thinks it's a Republican idea. Whatever his reasoning, he's already publicly put his position out there. So it's kind of interesting to see that he's the guy who's in charge of finding out more about this. He's the guy who's in charge of hearing from John Solak about this. I think that's incredibly telling about this entire process. And it's very telling about how they treat you, the individual, the member of the public, when you present your ideas to them. How dare you? Councilman Hotchkiss is telling you to your face, how dare you come up with an idea that has been done before that could apply to this city? How dare you present an idea that you didn't go through the proper channels? You didn't go to the right organizations. You're not aligned with the correct political faction. How dare you care about your community and present this idea? Okay, so he goes on with that. Let's go even further. Let's take this a little bit further because Hotchkiss is the ones. And let's see what he has to say for himself.
Down John Solak, Binghamton resident.
So now they're going to bring out John.
Good evening, John.
You have to hit the button so that way you can hear.
Know what I'm doing here. You've indicated that this isn't, you're not going to vote on it. That,
Not at the work session.
We don't vote at work. This is the work
Okay.
session.
but it's not going forward. That's what you've implied to the media.
So let me stop it right here. Because many of the members of City Council have since said, and the Binghamton City Democratic Committee, as we will show you in just a moment, have said, well, John's out of his mind and this was dead in the water and he lost his chance to promote this idea. It was never going to happen in the first place. They had already made up their mind. And John correctly is identifying, wait a minute, you've already made your decision. You said you're not going to vote on this. Given, it's a work session, so they can't talk about it. They're not going to make final votes in that work session. They can, but they're not doing it this time. Fantastic. But at the same time, they've already come out, or at least Hotchkiss has, and said this is dead in the water. So shouldn't he recuse himself? Shouldn't he say to the public, you know what? I've already said I don't like this idea. I've without hearing a word, without looking and doing any research, I've said this is dead in the water, so we're not going to go any further. Let me recuse myself. I shouldn't be involved in this because I've publicly said something without any information. I should be out of this completely. No, but he doesn't. John is correct in saying he should recuse himself because he is biased. This is an example of political bias. And it's not based on left and right. It's about those who are elected and you, the private citizen. This is a disrespect to the people that Hotchkiss is supposed to serve. And the fact that no one on the Binghamton City Council dares to say, hey, by the way, John has a point. He's right. You are biased in this. You should not be involved. you should recuse yourself. Not one of them said, hey, John, we support you in that. You're right on that point. Let's continue. We support you and let's continue. No one says that. They all stay silent and allow Hotchkiss to go forward and to defend himself and say, no, it doesn't matter. Even though I've already biased, even though I've already publicly made my decision, we're going to go forward anyway. Give it your best shot, even though I'm going to shoot this down. I've already said I'm against this. That's insane. That's horrible. Do you see the problem here? Because the problem isn't John. It's not his proposal. Doesn't matter if you agree or disagree about defunding the police. It's not even about that. Let's go further.
This is a chance for you to present this to us right now. Do you want to do that?
Well, if you will agree to abstain because your comments to the media indicate, I can get a fair shake from Councilman Porter and Councilman Middleton, but I don't think I can get a fair shake with you based on your statements to WBNG and WIVT.
Okay, so do you want to present on this or not?
Well, this is the same proposal that.
See, he goes, so do you want, notice, total disregard for the facts at hand, a total disrespect that he has presented, and reinforcing the bias that he already has. Well, are you going to go and present this or not? You got to keep going. Doesn't matter how much bias is here. Doesn't matter that we've already made the decision. Doesn't matter that it's putting elected officials over the public. That doesn't matter. Do it now or you lose. Okay, let's go on. This is how much the progressives love the public. This is how much they support the public, that they don't want to hear a word from you. You're there to be obedient, not to demand them to be subservient, to demand that city council is subservient, as is their oath. Let's go on. Let's see.
That cut crime in Camden, New Jersey, a hellhole by 42%. By 42%. And you progressives kill me. You're sort of like conservatives. People run on that conservative line, boy, and they fold like a cheap suit. And this is the same thing. You got to talk to Zukoski about me and my resolution.
Now, John starts getting upset. Again, John is a very emotional individual. And he's upset because of confronting bias in his face, disrespect in the public media. He's been called a crackpot. He's been called a extremist. He's been said that his idea makes no sense whatsoever, without regard to the fact that it has a factual basis and has shown that over 10 years it has worked in Camden, New Jersey. That it at least deserves the respect of being judged on that basis and considered. And that decision shouldn't be the city council. That should be the public. So John is emotional right now. Now, here's the thing that I find interesting. So the elected officials get upset because John he's insulting them. Guess what? That's his First Amendment right. He was promised in the news media he would have 5 minutes. 5 minutes. They said on this dais before he showed up that he will have, this is public commentary, and he will be able to present his position. He has 5 minutes. He has 5 minutes of public comment, period. Now, if he wants to take all that time and insult the members for not doing their job, that's his right. And it is also important to point out he is so incensed that they have failed in their duties that he is telling them to their face. And it's insulting, but yeah, he's telling you, you failed your job, city council. You're not living up to the expectations. You're not living up to the promises you made and got elected on. And it is his right by the First Amendment to tell the elected figures that you have failed in his opinion. You serve him, not the other way around. And if you don't like that in his public commentary, too bad. By the way, this is not the first time that John Solek has done this. He has done this many, many times to many different city councils, led by Democrats, led by Republicans, to individual members of the city council who are left and right. This is not new. He's done it at the county level. He's done it at the state level, federal level. So if your skin is so thin that you can't handle 5 minutes of one man laying down his disapproval of you, why are you in politics? Why are you in elected office? That you can't handle one man? He isn't cursing you out. He's telling you you're miserable at your job. Maybe he's right. Maybe you need to improve. Maybe you should listen to the core of what he is saying. Yes, he's emotional. Will not, I guarantee you, it's Binghamton, New York. You have groups like Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow in your city. This is not the last time you're going to hear emotional reactions. I have shown video of members of the far left, including Tariq Abdelazim and Mayor Matt Ryan, going around cursing out individuals, threatening individuals of the city council and elected office. And I didn't hear the Democrats screaming, "Oh my God, it's so terrible." They were saying, he's a little emotional, deal with it. That no one was trying to shut up those individuals. In fact, they were rewarded. Matt Ryan was able to run for county DA after cursing out individuals when he got arrested. Maybe I don't know, maybe I'm a little different. And by the way, for people who are watching this, John Cordisco, who has Cordisco's Corner, his own channel there, he was a member of the Binghamton City Council in the past. And John will correct me if I am wrong in the comments, and please do. This isn't the first time that John Solak has gone off on the city council because of the idea he has, nor is it the first time that they've been insulted to their face. And that happens. And people are supposed to be able to do that. That's the First Amendment. But let's go forward. I know. Oh, wait a minute. It's not play. Oh, that's why.
Police chief for life? This is a joke. This is a joke. The brand.
President, I'm going to call a point of order. Can
Yeah,
you bring
point
this
of
back
order.
on topic?
Yeah. Yes,
Thank
it's
you.
like,
Stay on topic, John.
yeah, John, John, you came here to discuss that. This is not an insult meeting. This is not anything like that. You
Okay.
came here to discuss something. You stick to it.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll handle this like we handled term limits. Term limits.
See, at this point, John is fed up and he walks away. Why? Because they still haven't addressed his first and primary question. Why is Hotchkiss not recusing himself? That they have already, Hotchkiss indicated that the Binghamton City Council already made their decision that this was not going to go forward. We've already heard from the Republican Party. We've already heard from the Democrats. This isn't going to happen. Doesn't matter the factual basis on it. It doesn't matter if it's a good idea or a bad idea. No one's listening to it. No one's analyzing it. They've already thrown it out because John is an individual, not a public organization, not a part of a political party. No. They don't like anyone else speaking. John spoke. So what's his point? John is correct in saying, you've already made up your mind. You're not even giving me the platitude of saying, okay, Hotchkiss is going to recuse himself, even though he seems to represent the voice of the entire city council. And they're like, oh, well, John, stop talking. Talk about this other part we want you to. It is his public time. If he wants to insult you, he can. He's not cursing at you. He can tell you you're miserable at your job and you suck. That's perfectly fine for anyone to do that. And I've watched the Democrats do that very vociferously. I've watched the members of Working Families Party, the progressive movement in Binghamton, members of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow curse out and threaten members of city council and elected office. I've seen them go and threaten the children of members of city council. And you're telling me you're afraid of one 78-plus-year-old man with his complaint because you don't like it for 30 seconds? Are you out of your mind? What happened to his 5 minutes? What happened to his free speech that you guaranteed he would get? You took it away from him. That should be the highlight here. But wait a minute. So this is what John does. And by the way, we'll just
Went directly
I'll
on the
play it out.
ballot.
Okay.
The council
John's
people
gonna
were
walk
all
away.
against it. It passed.
Okay,
You people are fakes,
okay,
phonies, and frauds.
okay,
You're no different than the last
Okay.
council. You're a bunch of
okay. Thank
for
you,
your time,
John.
John.
Have a good day.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, and so he says, you're just like the last city council. Again, John, that was run by Republicans. John didn't have a lot of love for them either, or the Democrats or the progressives that were in the prior city council. This isn't new. So I want to go to the next item here. Hang on one second. So what was the response to this? What was the result? And by the way, when I say that this is something that was already done in the past, I do have the link in the description. Here it is. This is proof about this. It's been 10 years, Camden, New Jersey. So he has a valid point. And when you hear these politicians and these hopeful politicians saying that, well, you should discount everything that John Solak has said because they don't like him as an individual, they don't like his politics, well, you're discounting the facts at hand. You're discounting what he's done. And let me just point out, and here's the college itself saying, hey, they too were saying, well, John, he had a point there, but not really. And by the way, the mayor, Jared Cram of Binghamton, he doesn't like the idea either. He didn't listen to the idea. He didn't evaluate the idea, but he didn't like it either. And and I'm going to get to the comments in just 1 second here, but I want to point out something that I think is also very important about this. Here's the mayor. Now, Mayor Cram, as you saw you may have noticed in the prior Twitter feed, and as mentioned by the Pipe Dream, Binghamton University itself, they said Jared Cram, the mayor of Binghamton, had a discussion at 10 a.m. today about John Solak, about this proposal to defund the police. And Jared Cram, just like the city council, is so invested in this idea. He is so open to hearing from the public that he doesn't list it. By the way, I've also done a search on Google under Jared Cram, under Mayor Jared Cram, under City of Binghamton. I've done a couple different searches on this, trying to find where the mayor, what did he actually say? And I looked for the news reports about the quote of what he said. I don't have it. It doesn't exist. Why isn't there any comment? I don't know. Again, the only thing I'm left with is both the Republicans and the Democrats showed their cards. They're playing politics with the public. Now, John Cordisco did say that as a city council president, which he was, he only stopped a speaker once in 8 years to just tone it down. And the person who was speaking to him agreed. I've seen how some of the people spoke to John Cordisco and to city council in the past. You don't stop them. It's their time. Whether they waste it or not doesn't matter. And that's not for the political parties to decide. As we have seen with the Binghamton City Democrats, the Democratic Party of Broome County, we've seen that with the Republican Party. They all failed. But the reason why I think this is brilliant, and I said before, this was brilliant and genius, because John Solak pointed out and put a spotlight on all of this for the public to see. He made this crystal clear. Is defunding the police a dumb idea? Absolutely. Has it failed? Absolutely. Do I think what happened in Camden can be repeated? Really, no, I don't. Very unique circumstances, and over 10 years, they've had lots of problems, and then they fixed some of the problems. But I think it's a bad idea overall. Fantastic. You can disagree with me about that, and we can have that conversation. But when we're seeing politicians play games That, well, it's reimagining the police, revisioning the police, social justice, bail reform, all the different ways they like to say, yeah, we're trying to get rid of the police. We want you to be defenseless. By the way, you don't get to exercise your Second Amendment rights. You don't get to have passive self-defense like owning a bulletproof vest. I think that's important. I think this highlighted, I think John Solak was not trying to get this done. Well, maybe as a flyer out there. He had a 1% chance of actually getting this onto the ballot so the public could tell the politicians exactly what they want. Because the politicians are having a great time saying, we represent the people and they want social justice. And then if you actually put it on a ballot, the public says, no, we don't. When you ask them in a poll, no, they don't. It's very clear that the public have absolutely totally separate values and ideas than the elected officials. But the elected officials made a lot of promises. And the public, desperate for any kind of change, any kind of positive change, said, okay, we'll give you a shot. Here's your chance. Go for it. Give me what you've promised. And instead of even trying to do that, even trying to live up to the promises they have made that their political parties have pushed forward, no, they're just going, oh, no. It's not about any of that. We're going to kick the can down the road, forget about what may or may not be effective. Don't even talk about that. Remember, you're a member of the public. You're supposed to serve the elected officials. How dare you present a bill? How dare you actually ask these politicians to give the public a voice, to make a choice? It's very upsetting to me. I know that this was one of the lowest voter turnouts in many years that elected this progressive movement. Fine. And then again, that's a failure of the Republican Party as well as mainstream Democrats in allowing the progressives to take the highlight, the spotlight, and to get elected. Fine. But let's focus. I think this was 4D chess. In one simple declaration, John Solak did a phenomenal job of highlighting the ineptitude and the disrespect that is in New York politics. And I have seen this for 2 decades in county after county, city after city, at every level, local, state, and federal, that we have been seeing this. That politicians, by the mere fact they got elected, think that they are better than the people they are there to serve, that they are not listening to the public, they are listening to their party, and they're pushing ideology over anything that might be effective. And that's the detriment of the public. I think, you know what? I don't believe in defunding the police. The majority of people in New York State and in the United States do not believe in defunding the police. But yet we have politicians who are definitely interested in doing it, whether they just cut the budget or they reallocate the budget or they reimagine the training, however they want to word it, and it always winds up, oh, and we have less police. You know what? Put it on the ballot. Let the public vote. And when the public tells you what they have consistently been saying year after year after year, virtually everywhere in this nation, then you will see, okay, that's not your job. Stop wasting our time and our money on something no one wants except a political agenda. Focus on the things that people do want. Focus on being effective and efficient in areas that the public are actually interested in, because this isn't one of them. But I know the Democrats know that's what the result would be. And rather than face the consequences that their promises, that their hopes and dreams, their political agenda, rather than having it shot down and they lose, they will rather discard anyone who brings that up, label them as a nut job, a crackpot, as an extremist, try to destroy their character, and run from that idea as fast as possible so that they can maintain the illusion of their power. And the Republicans, on their end, This was a big propaganda win for them. They could have sold this all day long. But instead, they allowed their personal dislike of John Solak and their dislike of the subject, and rather than looking into it and going, you know what, I know my constituents. I know they will not agree with defunding the police. I know the police department's been doing a good job. Rather than actually standing there and say, go ahead, go for it. Let's put it on the ballot. Let's let the public decide. Because I know the public stands with me. That's what they could have done. And rather than doing that, they said, oh, no. How dare a citizen, a private citizen, assume that they can do what only elected officials can do? Look, I've had conversations with every single member of the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, all of the parties in New York State, especially in the southern tier of New York. None of them are geniuses. I've seen some of the bills they put together. None of them are geniuses. None of them are experts at doing anything efficient or effective. That's just a fact. Left, right, center. I've talked to all of you. You know it for a fact. I've done interviews with you guys, publicly and privately. So don't try and pretend like you're all of a sudden geniuses because you got a couple of extra votes. You're not. You know that and I know that. But at least have the decency and respect and to live up to the oath of office, then rather than throwing something out of hand outright because of your feelings, actually do your job. Think about the consequences. That's all they had to do. Think about the consequences. If the Democrats thought about the consequences, they'd have said, let's move forward because this is what they have been promising their constituents. This is what the donations they've been getting for a decade have been leading to. This is what their candidates, like as an example, Tariq Abdel-Azim and Mayor Matt Ryan and many others have been pointing to over and over again. Live up to your promises. Do what you've been telling people. And on the Republican side, if you know you're right and you have the facts, why not do this? Why are you so desperate and terrified of someone else stealing your thunder for even a moment that you don't take this win? This was a win. And by the way, yes, it's a win for the Republican Party. It's a win for the public. Because that would have settled this social justice, political police reform issue in a heartbeat. It would end it. And we'd then be able to focus our energy and our time and our money, our taxpayer funds, onto issues that actually matter. And this is why I want to see it in every ballot in New York State. I want to see every city and town have this on the ballot so we can get rid of this issue and move forward. Stop wasting our time. Stop trying to convince us of something we already have a decision on. Use the facts that are available to us. Actually take it seriously. Deal with it. But demonizing people is not the answer. Running from the issue is not the answer. Flip-flopping on your campaign promises and the ideology of your party is not the answer. John Cordisco says, this is only the first month of the new council. Will we get 4 more years of this? Imagine that. 4 more years of disrespect of individuals in city council based on political ideology and preference. Their political preference and the ability for them to maintain the image of power. That's what you're looking at. I would be very disappointed if I'm a Democrat. I would be livid if I'm a progressive, especially the members of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, who gave these Democrats in the city council that you gave them your money. You went out and got the signatures. You convinced your friends to vote for them. I'd be livid if I were them. And as for the Republicans, I'd be insanely disappointed. Not one Republican took 30 seconds to think this through. You know John Solak. You may not like John Solak, but he's not an idiot. He doesn't run around screaming at the top of his lungs because he's crazy. He's crazy smart. He does his homework. He has research. There might be something more to what he is saying than what you read on the surface. And before you start giving out gut checks, saying, oh my God, this is so horrible. We can't do this. No, no, no. Don't even think about it. Don't know. Actually, think a little deeper. Take an extra step. Let's look at the consequences. Consider what is the option in front of you. They failed all the Republicans in Broome County. And in effect, they've also failed Republicans across this state. You had an opportunity to make the point and make it solid as hell that this whole farce about social justice is useless. You could have ended it. We would not have this conversation for years if you were to just simply have paid attention, and rather than demonizing someone who doesn't obey your party dictates, you could have had a win. And I know there's a bunch of Republicans in Broome County who are pissed off right now. Don't care. I know you all. You were pissed at me before. You're pissed at me now. And what does that change in my life? Nothing. Because I wasn't wrong then. I'm not wrong now. You screwed up. Being mad at me for pointing it out doesn't change. You screwed up. You failed. Do better. Let's quote Captain America. Let's quote Disney. Do better. Because you failed. The Democrats failed. The Republicans failed. The city council has failed. The Broome County Sheriff Department failed. The mayor of Binghamton failed. Period. Point blank. I saw all your public statements. I saw what you were reporting. And the news media has failed in not identifying several of the things I've identified in this video. It was less than 5 minutes for John Solak. They could have pointed this out, that Hotchkiss should recuse himself, and he didn't. Why is that? That they were talking to Police Chief Zikuski not about the transparency that this happened or that he had the opportunity to defend the police department, but about some other issue they won't even tell us about. There is a problem here. It is systemic. It's not about race. It's not about privilege. It's about power of the political parties, and they are destroying the infrastructure of our cities, our state, and our nation. And we need to call it out. Now, I had a lot to say here. Share this with your friends. Maybe you will agree. Maybe you will disagree. Maybe you think I'm right or wrong. John Gradisco, I know you've been on city council. I look forward to seeing your comments about this. Maybe you'll do a video on it yourself. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Tell me where you think I got it wrong. Tell me where you think I got it right. I look forward to hearing if there is any member of the Binghamton City Council that would like to dispute my points of view on this. I will give you as much time as you need. I am not restricted like mainstream media. I can give you as much time as you need to talk about this and debate this. And I have in the past. You know this for a fact. I've done interviews. I have no problem spending as much time as I need to allow you to clarify your position. If Nate Hotchkiss would like to dispute why he should be recused, I am willing to give you as much time as you need to be able to explain that, because I don't believe that you are correct. You should have recused yourself. You are biased politically. You have failed your constituents. If there is anyone in the Republican Party, whether it's Mayor Jared Cram or Fred Akshar or Police Chief Zikuski, or anyone else I have mentioned in any video, the video I did yesterday or today, if you disagree, I'm happy to have the conversation with you. You all know who I am. You all know my phone number. You all know my email. You all know how to contact me. I am more than happy to have these conversations with any of you live. Get in touch if you think I'm wrong. In the meantime, folks, yes, we should put this on the ballot. And yes, it means it will fail. And yes, it means we will never hear about this social justice garbage again, this reform the police and this bail reform. We're not going to, let's end this. It's a failed social experiment, and the experiment has hurt people, ultimately. It has led to people dying. Let's get rid of the stupid waste and inefficiency and political preening and do the jobs we're supposed to be doing. Serve the public. The public does not serve you. And the House voted, wait a minute, and I know I was looking at this earlier. So the House did not vote to impeach Mayorkas. 4 Republicans backed down. They were close. Well, I'll be looking into that after we end this. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on this. I have my puppy to take out. He was complaining a little bit earlier. But I just wanted to get that out there. I wanted you to actually look at what was said, to look at how the First Amendment was denied and curtailed, to see the contempt that the current city council, much like many elected officials, have against the public, to see how inefficient and ineffective government is, and the cause of it is political partisanship of the worst kind. About power, about maintaining the power they have and not considering the consequences or ways to improve your life. We need better people. We need better people in elected office. We need more people doing what John Solek did. Does that mean it's always going to be right? No. Does it mean it's always going to be a good idea? No. But it can't get much worse than what we're seeing now with the Binghamton City Council, what we're seeing in Broome County politics. Doesn't get too much worse. But that's my point of view. Yeah. Okay, guys. So that's what I wanted to say today. That's where I stand on this. Please share this. I'm more than happy. Share it with every member of Binghamton City Council, with the Broome County Democratic Committee, with the RNC, the Broome County GOP, the Broome Republicans, County Sheriff, anyone you want. Share it. I look forward to seeing all of their comments. And I'd be happy to see you guys again in our next video or our Sunday live stream that we do every week. I thank you, and I hope you're going to have a great day, folks.